Hey guys, Brett Weiss here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. Welcome to the channel. If you're new to it, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out a lot. So today I want to talk about another genre that I really love. I recently did a video on maze games. Today I want to do one on climbing games. These are games where the central core element involves climbing. This is largely a lost art. There are some recent games that involve climbing, like there's a new version of Burger Time for the Switch, sort of a reimagined version. But this is climbing games, just as far as mainstream big releases, it's pretty much a lost genre, and I love these kinds of games. So I want to spotlight 10 of them, 10 old, retro, vintage climbing games. Now, nowadays, a lot of times these games are lumped in with platformers or non-scrolling platformers or vertically scrolling platformers. Before Super Mario Brothers sort of established platforming as a genre, these were called climbing games, but nowadays people call them platformers, but I want to call them climbing games under their original title. I absolutely love these types of games, so let's get to it. One of my favorites of all time, obviously, since it's on this list, is Diner for the Intellivision at number 10. It's such a great game. Maybe I should have put it higher on the list, but it is amazing. Check out that cool cartoonish box art. I love it. This is a relatively obscure game. It's a console exclusive and television exclusive sequel to the arcade classic Burger Time, incorporating some of the same characters and gameplay elements, but radically different at the same time. It has a whopping 15 screens, which is super impressive for an era when 4 screens was amazing. So you guide, once again, Peter Pepper around the screen, but it sort of has a pseudo 3D look, like maybe Congo Bongo or something like that. But you guide Peter Pepper around the screen, and he pushes food balls like down ramps and down on and on, down ladders, down to the bottom of the screen. And once you have all the food balls in a line at the bottom of the screen, you complete the level. But you also push the food balls into bananas, hot dogs, and other enemies to score points. And once again, like in Burger Time, you can grab Pepper and you can shake the Pepper at enemies to stun them. It is just an amazing game. It even has bonus rounds. It's a really deep game at 15 screens, and I just highly recommend it. It's kind of pricey on eBay, but I love it. Highly recommended. Great game. Diner at number 10. I love it when there are console exclusive games, sequels to arcade games. Really neat touch there. Number 9, a related title, Burger Time. And I'm going to use the Intellivision version because it has 7 screens, got a bonus screen there. It is a fantastic game. It's a great port of the arcade game. And, you know, you're as Peter Pepper, you are walking around the screen across platforms, climbing ladders, of course, but you're walking across burger parts to get them to collect at the bottom of the screen. You're building several burgers on the screen, and you're dodging enemies like Mr. Egg, Mr. Pickle, Mr. Hot Dog, and you can grab bonus items for Pepper to shake at the enemies. Now, like Diner, Burger Time can get a little frustrating when you run out of Pepper to shake at the enemies because it's easy to get trapped. And maybe if I were better at these two games, or maybe if they didn't get quite so frustrating, they would rank higher on the list. But regardless, they are both amazing. Burger Time for the Atari or the Intellivision, but the ColecoVision version of Burger Time is great as well. And of course, neither one of these would exist without the all-time classic Burger Time in the arcade. So Burger Time at number 9. I love it. Number 8 is Donkey Kong, the amazing coin-op classic. It is a fantastic game with 4 screens, and I remember playing this game at Malibu Grand Prix, and I remember seeing back in the day, in the early 80s, Donkey Kong was huge, and I remember there being lines at this game when it first came out, and the cartoon-like graphics, the storyline. You are, climbing, like an industrial site, buildings, girders, climbing ladders, to get to the top of the screen and rescue your girl. And it is an amazing game. You were guiding Jumpman, later Mario. Just a fantastic game, all-time classic. And it's such a iconic game and such a great game that it carries forward to today with the Kong-Off competitions where people compete to beat, every year they have this competition where grown 40 and 50-year-old men, some people write Donkey Kong off as just a kiddie game, but it is challenging, and it was popular with all ages when it was released. cartoon-like graphics, great music and sound effects, and it is challenging. If someone that's, back in the day when it was a new game and a lot of people just didn't know how to play it or hadn't played it much, it was tough to get past the first screen for a lot of people, especially tough to beat all 4 screens. It keeps looping, but it's a tough game if you don't have a lot of familiarity with it. But people, in recent years have gotten well over 1 million points in these Kong-off competitions. Fantastic game, Donkey Kong at number 8, very iconic. I tend to play it a lot on my NES, even though it just has 3 screens. Shame on you, Nintendo, for that, but it's still a fun game, even with just the 3 screens. Number 7. This maybe a lot of you guys, maybe you've never played this because you haven't had much or any time playing the Odyssey 2, or maybe you didn't grow up with it. Maybe all your friends and you just had Atari. But my cousin and some good friends had Odyssey 2 when I was growing up. Pickaxe Pete, my friend Ray had an Odyssey 2, and I loved going to Ray's house and playing this game because my cousin had an Odyssey 2, but she did not have Pickaxe Pete, so I loved going over to Ray's house and playing this game. It's a very arcade-like game for the Odyssey 2, one of the more arcade-like for the system. You go around the screen smashing boulders and climbing ladders, and these ladders will disappear and appear in different places, giving the game a very dynamic sense to it. And you pick up pickaxes, and after a while, as the manual exclaims, your Pickaxe Pete is so strong, the pickaxes will disintegrate, and you'll have to go find another one that randomly appears on the screen, again giving the game a very dynamic and a very different different experience every time you play the game. Dynamic. Just a fantastic game. Pickaxe Pete at number 7. If you don't have much experience with the Odyssey 2, or if you've never played it, check out Pickaxe Pete along with Casey Munchkin and Casey's Crazy Chase. And it's a great system, underrated console. And Pickaxe Pete is definitely one of my 3 or 4 favorite games for the system. Absolutely fantastic. And you can grab keys to enter these doorways, and with a really neat graphical effect, and it really has a great impact on your score. Great game, Pickaxe Pete. Number 6 is another one that maybe you guys haven't spent much time with, or ever heard of or played. Squishem Featuring Sam for the ColecoVision. Now this is actually a vertically scrolling platformer. As you climb the building, the action does go upward, and you're trying to reach the top to get money. Squishem Featuring Sam. I love this game for the ColecoVision. And you jump on creatures, and as you climb, you must avoid falling bricks, hammers, and TVs and other items. And it's got voice effects. It says Squishem, and it says money, money, money. And it's just a fantastic game. Squishem Featuring Sam. Very arcade-like, very underrated and unheralded game for the ColecoVision. Just terrific, fantastic game that I still play to this day quite a bit. That was number 6, Squishem Featuring Sam. Number 5 is another familiar title. And again, I play this on the NES quite a bit. It's Donkey Kong Jr. I play it on my Classics collection that contains Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. And the NES version actually has 4 screens, unlike the NES version of Donkey Kong. So thank you, Nintendo, for that, for correcting your mistake with the original Donkey Kong and putting all 4 screens. You climb up and down on vines, and you slide down vines. You push up keys, and you drop fruit on birds and snapping jaws. There's a lot going on the screen. It's just a ton of fun. Mario is the bad guy in this game, but it's just a really cool dynamic platformer. And I actually prefer it, as you can tell by its ranking on the list, I prefer it to Donkey Kong. I just think it's a little more versatile, and it's just, I don't know, it's just a little more fun to me these days. It seems just a little more timeless somehow, even though Donkey Kong itself is so iconic and it has the competition and everything. Donkey Kong Jr. just seems a little fresher today, a little more playable, and for whatever reason, I just find it a little more fun today, a little more challenging. Donkey Kong Jr. at number 5. Number 4 is another great title that I spend a lot of time playing on my NES, and that is the arcade classic Popeye with a terrific port on the NES, and I spent a lot of time playing the ColecoVision version as well. You climb ladders and stairs, you collect floating objects thrown down from olive oil, like letters and hearts and things, and musical notes. You punch Bluto, you've got the Sea Hag to deal with her bouncing skulls. Bernard the Vulture comes out on the screen, and you can energize yourself with spinach to punch enemies. It'd be nice if there was a little bit more punching involved, because that's very limited, but it's because it's only when he's energized with spinach. Still, that would maybe change the game to not be as fun. Maybe it would make punching or fighting too much of an element, but it is a climbing game, a platform game, and I love it. Popeye, very cartoon-like, and the music is great, and the sound effects are nice. Really cool game, Popeye, at number 4. All right, let's get to number 3. This is one that you guys may or may not have heard. Most of you have probably heard of Mr. Do, the arcade classic, where there was a sequel, Mr. Do's Castle. And I spent a ton of time playing this game on the ColecoVision. It's a great Parker Brothers title for the ColecoVision, a really nice port. Yeah, the graphics are a little faded and not as colorful or detailed as the arcade version, but like so many ColecoVision arcade ports, this one is great and has great graphics and excellent gameplay. You hammer floor blocks on top of unicorns. You climb up and down ladders, of course. What sets this one apart is you push some of the ladders over so you can climb to different platforms that are otherwise inaccessible. And so you can also trap the unicorns in holes, sort of like the enemies in Space Panic, where you can trap them so you can reach them. Really cool game, and you got your hammer going around smashing these floor blocks. And 3 of the blocks contain keys. And if you get all 3 keys, you can go to the top and be energized, kind of like in Pac-Man, and turn the tables on the enemies. Mr. Do's Castle, fantastic game, weighing in at number 3. Love Mr. Do's Castle, and it is the sequel, one of the sequels, to my favorite game of all time, Mr. Do. So I like that heritage as well. Mr. Do's Castle, great game. Number 2. This is an epic game for the ColecoVision, weighing in at 11 screens. Miner 2049er, amazing game. You are Bounty Bob, and you walk around filling in platforms. You walk over all the platforms on the screen to complete the level, and it kind of fills them in with color. There's moving platforms, slides, ladders, of course. Again, that's the basic theme here. Elevators to ride. You grab tools to turn the tables on the enemies, kind of like Pac-Man. And when you grab these tools for a limited time, you can chase the enemies. It adds a great dynamic to a climbing game. Fairly unusual in a climbing game. I mentioned there's a similar thing in Mr. Do's Castle, but not a real common element to climbing games, but it definitely makes them a lot of fun. And I'm going to put also in this rank at number 2, Bounty Bob Strikes Back. Now, Miner 2049er was released for the ColecoVision with 11 screens. The 5200 version just had 10 screens, which was a bragging point for ColecoVision fans. But the ColecoVision did not get Bounty Bob Strikes Back. That is a hard-to-find game. As a matter of fact, I don't currently have a copy in my collection. But it's a terrific game, and it's got a lot of the elements of Miner 2049er, but it ups the ante with 25 freaking screens. You think Diner was big at 15 screens, or Miner 2049er for the ColecoVision with 11. Bounty Bob Strikes Back has 25 screens. It's just amazing. Super dynamic gameplay. If number 1 on this list wasn't one of my favorite games of all time, Miner 2049er / Bounty Bob Strikes Back, which have similar gameplay to each other, they would be at number 1. But number 1, and some of you guys, oh, by the way, I do have the 5200 version of Miner 2049er in the box. I threw away my ColecoVision box a long time ago, unfortunately, when I was, still living at home, making room in my space in my room. Big mistake, but anyway. Let's get to number 1. Now, if you watch my channel a lot, you're probably sick of me talking about this game, of singing this game's praises. It is Beauty and the Beast for the Intellivision. Yes, maybe you guys are sick of it, but it's such an amazing game by iMagic, and is not based on the fairy tale or the movie or anything like that. It is a Donkey Kong-like game, and it also borrows from Crazy Climber, the original OG climbing game, which didn't make the list, and I'll get to that in just a second. You climb up windows that are opening and closing, and you got to be really careful of that. And you can jump over boulders. You can grab hearts that are thrown down by Mabel, your rather ugly, I must say, girlfriend at the top of the screen. Still a nice looking game, but she doesn't look so great. But it's a fantastic game, and when you grab a heart, that makes you invulnerable to the boulders that are coming down. You can jump over the boulders, but you can go right through them if you're energized by hearts. Just a fantastic game. And you should avoid playing Donkey Kong on the Intellivision. The Intellivision version is simply not very good. but Beauty and the Beast more than makes up for it. It is probably the most arcade-like game for the Intellivision. You can imagine going up to a game and slapping a quarter in and playing Beauty and the Beast. That game wouldn't feel out of place in a coin-op arcade. Just fantastic game. My all-time favorite Intellivision game is Beauty and the Beast, and one of my favorite video games of all time. Love it. It just you're going up the same design of building, but it gets harder as you go. The pacing picks up, and it just gets crazy. Grabbing hearts makes you invulnerable to the other enemies as well, such as the bats. All right, fantastic game, Beauty and the Beast at #1. Now, there are some other climbing games that I really enjoy that didn't quite make the list, like Kangaroo, Load Runner, which I imagine a lot of you would put that on a list like this. Space Panic, a great arcade game that I played a lot on my ColecoVision. Jumpman Jr., very difficult game on the ColecoVision. That probably would have made the list if it wasn't so hard. It gets impossible. Crazy Climber itself, the OG climbing game. I've been playing that on my Switch a lot lately. Fantastic game. Didn't quite make the cut though. The controls are kind of, they're just really rough. If they had smoother controls, maybe it would get on the list. I even like King Kong and Fast Eddie for the Atari 2600. Not great games, but they are fun climbing games. All right, guys, in the comments, let me know, what is your favorite climbing game? If you want to give me a list, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate it. And like I said, a lot of these are, some people call these non-scrolling platformers or vertical platformers or whatever. Whatever you call them, just leave me in the comments. What is your favorite climbing game? Or 10 favorites or some of your favorites. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for liking this video. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in another video. We'll talk to you later.